Okay, it says that we are live on the YouTubes for the February 2025. Still working that one out. February 2025 Westlake Charter Board meeting. Board President Golick, you have the floor.
Thank you. For those of you watching at home on YouTube, please know you can make a public comment via email. Just send it to admin@westlakecharter.com. Put the topic in the subject line, and please try and limit the comment to 250 words or less. Every effort will be made to read your comment into the record, but if a comment is not read due to limitations, we'll make sure they are part of the minutes. With that, Amy, will you please take the roll?
Mm-hmm. Hope?
Yes.
Sean?
Here.
Yes.
Sorry. Here.
And go ahead,
Josh?
hit your mics when you're ready. Yeah, there you go.
Satvir?
Here.
Sally?
Here.
Amber?
Here.
Suzanne? Nurali?
Here.
And Amy.
Here.
I waited long for Suzanne, like she was going to answer me.
It's okay, I said yes. So, it's one of those nights. Celebrations!
Whoop, whoop.
Who wants to go first? There's no reward for it, but I always appreciate it.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah,
Sean,
two
I'm
people at
sorry.
once. Two people at
Go,
once.
Amber, you're next. So,
And that goes toward Amy.
yep.
I would like to celebrate Mr. Ikley, who is
yeah.
just crushing it doing the esports, creating just a really supportive environment. The kids are all having a great time. He's on the ball as far as when they message about things that they want to do. He's supporting them with, here are ideas for how you can do things with your characters, and it's wonderful. Really,
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, shout out to Mitch Rackley. That program is booming right now and giving lots of kids kind of a cool space to be in, somewhere they feel plugged in and successful. That's cool. Houston, you want to go next?
Sure. Kind of in the same vein, I want to celebrate the boys varsity basketball
Whoop,
team
whoop.
making playoffs for the first time, our fourth year. The first year, I think they started out with 7 players, all freshmen. And so now we have some seniors, and they've made playoffs for the first time. So it's just been exciting to watch that journey.
Such a good story.
Schedules come out Sunday, so you guys will probably be playing on Tuesday or Wednesday.
I love it.
I'll celebrate community Little League kicked off last week, and I actually was running here from Little League practice, and it's just good to see all the parents around again. And when you always find out what school does your daughter go to, and then Westlake. Oh, can you get me into Westlake? No, I can't get you. You can do the laundry though, but yeah, it's good to see all the families back around.
Yeah.
And softball right around the corner.
Love the North Thomas Little League. Amy Rice.
Okay, so I have 2. One, I just want to say, because I'm sure someone else in the room is going to say it, that the training that we were able to have yesterday, so good. Just kind of reignited some of the why we do this and why it's so important that we are working with our students in culturally responsive ways. But then there were tools that were given, and I'm excited to receive more of them. Anyway, so good. Today is my oldest daughter's 16th birthday.
Oh,
What?
my gosh.
I cannot believe it. But
Happy
so
birthday,
excited.
Larkin.
Happy birthday. I just surprised her tonight at a big family dinner. I'm taking her on a trip, just her and me, to New York City.
Wonderful.
Oh,
She
let's
was
go.
like-
Let's go. I love it
So
so
it was really
much.
fun. It was really fun.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Hey, Debbie, playing?
Yeah, I'm going to, oh my gosh, it was right there. The spelling bee. I have been here a really long time, and have never done the spelling bee. And I moderated the spelling bee, which was really fun, but a little bit stressful, but really fun. I may have called the kids awful on accident.
You meant to say awesome. You meant to say
did.
awesome.
I did. I said at the very beginning, all the kids were sitting there, I said, you guys, I'm so stressed. I was really stressed, 2 days of stress. I'm like, I'm super stressed. Are you stressed? And they're like, yes. I'm like, well, you are all aw. And it meant to be awesome, and it came out awful. Unfortunately, all the parents and I laughed, and the kids laughed, and they're looking at me. I'm like, you're not awful. I'm awful. You're awesome. Let's just do it. But it was really fun. It was
Now
really
spell
fun.
it.
But it was really fun. But
It's
it was
good.
really, it was a lot of stress.
It's stressful. I've done the moderation. It's tough. It's tough. You gotta pronounce the words correctly. Like, I've never seen this word before in my
And
life.
you had a sentence,
That's
and
the
I'm
worst
like,
one.
no, I can't. Fortunately, they
Well,
wrote the
it's-
sentence down.
Genesis. Spell Genesis. It's Genesis. It's Genesis. But you get the pressure. I mean, everyone's looking at you. Genesis, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Eichel's good at spelling bee.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
I'm sure you were fabulous, but
No, I really.
Eichel's really good at it too.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he
yeah.
was, I think, equally stressed.
Everybody stresses.
You handled
Oh, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say you handled the oopsie that happened.
Yeah.
We went to go watch really well.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, well
Well,
done.
so you-
By you, but you know that
Yeah.
situation that happened.
Oh, yeah. There
It
was a
happens.
little girl who heard the word different
Yeah,
than the word I said,
so it
but she
happens.
spelled it right. And so then they were telling her she was wrong because it wasn't the right word. But I was like, oh, but wait. So we kind of stopped and we're like, but she said the right word. She heard the wrong word. I'm giving it to her.
There we go, moving on.
I don't know. Scripts will never hire me.
It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah, no. But we love you.
Rules, schmools.
I
Uh,
the Westlake way.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's the Westlake way, but yeah. Sorry, John.
And your numbers are, yeah, it's good. I'll celebrate a group of 14 students who are fulfilling a part of our Westlake Charter School mission. When we wrote our charter, way deep somewhere in the back of like page 427, we're like, and maybe someday, you know, we'll send kids abroad. Maybe someday we'll own a piece of property in Costa Rica. First step would be sending kids to Costa Rica. And right now, Abigail Grimaldi and a group full of high school students are on a plane right now on their way to Costa Rica. They're going to spend February break in Costa Rica. So a big part of our growing a high school was eventually sending kids abroad. And we think eventually it'd be cool if Westlake Charter School owned a piece of property in Costa Rica. We could have a farm down there and send kids down there one semester. Long time from now. Long time. Today, we're just very proud of Grimaldi and her kids who are on a plane right now heading to Costa Rica on our first international expedition, which is super cool for Westlake Charter School in our 20th year to be on that kind of journey. Super excited.
Goal area 4 or 5?
It's 4.
Four,
I'm glad
right?
4. So all I do is open up a little piece of property down there, and we have international exchange students go down there and all year round. Yeah, we'll be bringing it up to the next board meeting. What are you celebrating, Hope?
I'm gonna say I'll celebrate that we returned the dog we found. So I think that's a pretty big success. I hope there are more people out there doing the same, because I think fur babies are important parts of our family. And so I know this family was really relieved that their dog ended up somewhere safe and that we took the time to return it. That, and I'm gonna do a weird personal one. I want to celebrate the physical therapists of the world. Like I have some arthritis in my thumb that's been really bothering me, and I had thumb therapy this week, which is really weird. But like I did the scientists and whatnot, and I still was completely ignorant as to all the various muscles just in your thumb and how that interplayed with your index finger and how it collapses to protect. So I just want to, celebrate the medical professionals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm glad. I mean, I always say trust the expert in a field, right? Like I don't know how to fix a car, so I'm gonna, trust a mechanic to do that. I trust educators to educate my child because you know that. And I just want to thank the medical professionals because it was really nice to get a few minutes of relief.
Yeah. I always think those people went to elementary school somewhere.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean?
We all started somewhere.
I'm like, hey, every doctor, they went to K-12 somewhere,
Yeah, and maybe we're graduating the next doctor, or
That's
maybe
right,
we're
that's
graduating the next mechanic, or the next homemaker.
That's right.
But we're still giving them the tools for that, and so I just want to, thank all the helpers. It's a different type of helper, I know, but you just trust the expert.
It's good. I love it. Hubba Bubba?
I want to celebrate AI.
Yeah, let's
John and I
go.
have been playing, and we're a part of this cohort this year that gets together and we study the AI tools and try them out and practice with them. And unexpected discoveries is
Yeah.
the name of the game, because like you said earlier, you hear AI and you think, oh, you can go cheat with it, or you can chat GPT is what everybody knows, but there's hundreds, there's probably thousands of tools out there specifically designed for education.
Yeah.
And the couple of tools that I've tried this year have created an atmosphere of collaboration and engagement and confidence in math that I've never seen before. And it's so special and exciting. And so John and I applied to go speak at a conference, and we used to do the conference gig a lot.
Yeah.
Every conference we were at, speaking about what was going on in our tech worlds, and we haven't done it in a long
True.
time, and we get to go.
Yeah.
We're so excited.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be in San Diego, gigging at a conference down there in April, maybe?
April, yeah.
Yeah, very exciting.
I'm gonna celebrate, I think it's multiple people, but the idea is really all the events our school puts on. So from the spelling bee to the first dance for K through 8, all the way through the talent show that happened. I mean, everyone makes it possible, but it creates such a great community inside our school and outside, whether it be supporting other other friends in the classroom for the spelling bee, which is why my daughter wanted to go. She wanted to support her classmate that got selected.
So cool.
With another one to just, enjoying a dance and getting to meet other families in an environment that's not just pickups and drop-offs. And then we weren't able to make the town show, but I heard from, many of my daughter's classmates, and there was a classmate that performed second time, and it was just great to see the support from everyone.
Yeah.
His family was like, he's gonna perform if he can come, and it just created this camaraderie this year that's been really amazing. So I want to celebrate staff, parents, families, everyone that's helping put all that on.
Love it.
I'm going to celebrate the people that help with parking in the morning, particularly this morning in the pouring rain.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go Wells.
we pulled in at 8 o'clock on the dot, and there was already somebody that crossed over traffic and parked on the other side of the cone, facing the cones to drop their kid off in the pouring rain. And it was 8:01. They hadn't even made it to the curb yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if they blocked both lanes to get back out. I have no idea, but bless your hearts, you're out there in the pouring rain, and that's what you start your day with. So thank you.
Every day. Yes.
You, Josh, are welcome.
Yes. Mr. Corbin, bring us home.
I will give a shout out to Mr. Rubin, teacher over the high school. He's a theater arts teacher over there. Not only gets students engaged, but is also out in the community. He's performing, I think tomorrow night starts for the next couple weeks. There you go. At Celebration Theater in Midtown, in a show called Fences. So if you have a moment and want to go see one of our teachers out performing, I would encourage you to go check out Mr. Rubin. So,
Celebration Arts presents Fences by August Wilson. Great. Yep, looking forward to it.
With that, are there any board comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, are there any public comments? And
Let's see if there's any at the high school.
I was
Is
gonna say,
that
well,
where
you
we
look.
go?
Let's ask Mrs. Cahigas if there's anyone at the high school wishing to comment.
Hi, there is no one here at the high school.
You're not on like a porch in Vermont.
Oh,
She's at the airport.
Maybe she is on a porch in Vermont.
well, the trash can just went by. Yeah, nobody, did you hear me say there was nobody?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay.
Thanks, Keegas. And there are no public comments in the email inbox.
Perfect, that brings us to our reports for the evening. And did Felix send you one?
He did, let me see if I can find it. He said he was sending it in via email. I apologize, I didn't prepare it. You didn't receive it? I'm sure it's in my inbox, and we'll just stall while I pull this up right now. Sure, it's right here. Let me just refresh this email
We had a
right here.
spelling bee last month.
How was the spelling bee,
It
Dub?
was really good.
I do love the spelling bee.
It's nice.
There's a lot of sweat in that room.
There was.
That's what I
word
remember.
wrong, and our English teacher from the high school corrected me. That was good.
What grade won? Or was the,
Oh, yeah. My student won eighth
Eighth grade,
grader,
yeah.
her third time participating, and she's like, I finally won.
The cutest was the other student who was like neck and neck with her till the very end. He's a fourth grader.
there's always one,
I
yeah.
think. But he was the cutest thing, because he would come up and he would spell his word, and I'd be like, good job. And he's like, oh. And he'd walk away, like I was pulling his teeth. I was like, does he not want to win? Does he, what? But then at the end, when he didn't win, he cried, and then I felt really bad.
Do you remember, there was one year so you remember the Hendersons, because you had Brianna, right? So Devin had made it as the older brother, and then Brianna and Megan and Felicity had all made it. And so it was like the three younger sisters chasing the big brother.
That's okay.
So it can be really
I was
fun.
texting, maybe he'll send
Of course,
something
now
back.
he's getting ready to graduate from college, so nothing will make you feel old quite so quick.
So our team, I don't think I have something from Felix, but if it does come in, I'll let you know.
Perfect.
Yep.
Since I unfortunately had a misheard impact for court prep, can you do that update?
Yeah, we had a great charter impact meeting. The team we provided the team with logins to the California Charter Schools Association, the CCSA's portal. The CCSA portal offers resources. Each of you as board members can also have a login to the CCSA portal if you don't have one yet. But one of the tabs in the portal is renewal. And so the impact team logged into the renewal tab and started looking at the multi-year steps to renewing our charter. And the step we're on right now is preparing our data story, which is something we've actually been working on all year. So it's partly validating, partly like, eye-opening, some things to work on. But it was a good meeting.
Perfect. Josh?
So development met, we're not meeting the 22nd, it's right after February break. But everything's gonna keep rocking and rolling. We're continually working on tweaking our Explore Partnership sponsor program. Hopefully here soon we'll have something we can present to the board and kind of catch you guys up on what we're working on and get any feedback if you have any.
Perfect. Sean?
So finance met, we got an update from Steve on the governor's January budget proposal, and then also we continue our certificated compensation discussion.
Governance also met tonight. We had a truncated meeting because the major thing we needed to do tonight was come together as the school safety committee in order to recommend to the board later on tonight adoption of the 24-25 comprehensive school safety plan. But the majority of the governance discussion tonight is really, I think, a reminder of the work that committee does, right? Because we do our best to stay on top of legal changes, and then you realize that you're never maybe really on top of it. There's been a lot of changes that have come up over the last month, or potential changes, let's just say, nothing is set in stone. And so how the committee had a really solid discussion on sort of, it's okay to take it in and make sure we're educated and aware, and that it's better maybe to hold back and make sure we have all the pieces in play before we come forward. And I appreciated having that conversation. I don't want to make it sound like we're not reacting or taking care of what we need to do, but there's this piece of making sure we're really educated on the changes we need to make sure we make them in the best way for Westlake. And so I just really appreciate having that discussion tonight. With that, I will kick it over to you, Dr. Ike, for your executive director report.
Very good, very good. Well, hi, everybody. I was telling the team earlier, I'm like, well, if you looked at the agenda, we're like, oh, short agenda, that's always an indicator I have lots of slides, you know. Short agenda, I'm like, oh, I'll fill that space. I do have some exciting things to talk about tonight. One of them is a dashboard update. I'm excited about that. But we'll do what we do. We'll start with some celebrations. Then we'll go with strategic actions and updates. We had the K-8 family dance. Apparently it was called the Pajama Jammy Jam. Because we just love saying that out loud. Great times. You know, honestly, shout out to Felix, and I know I was going to try and share his thoughts that he was going to share with me, and maybe I misplaced the email, but shout out to Felix and the team for pulling this off. At one point, I was like, I think only a handful of families signed up. And of course, as Westlake does, the night of the event, I mean, there was over 150 people involved in the dance, and I think that's, you know, a shout out to just making things happen. People will show up if you just open the doors, you know. I love it. Great kindness challenge across all the K-8 campuses. Always such a home run in 1,000 little ways. You know, in 1,000 tiny ways that you'll never be able to put on a slide. But in the big ways, it's well organized, well put together, and a shout out to the team that makes that happen. We've been talking about this all night. The K-8 spelling bee was a slam dunk, and it was moderated by none other than our very own A-Dub. We had our prospective family tours on both campuses, but the ones that are highlighted over here, I guess that's both campuses. But I wanted to shout out the high school prospective family tours because it's new. It's such a new vibe. And as we're, you know, I know we finally went out to our 4th year, we've fully developed, but we're still launching brand new classes in this second semester that we've never had before. And so there's such a newness when the people, when families come to tour. We're also excited about, hey, what are we doing at the high school? And I feel really get a good eyeball on what that looks like. There are some daytime tours on both campuses and evening events as well, because we want to make sure that families had the opportunity, if they couldn't get the day off work, to come to one of the evening events. So that worked out really well. Our very first STEM career night, and this is such a slam dunk because it was one of these situations, just like everything that happens at Westlake. It's a couple people sitting around like, well, what if we tried this? You know, this wasn't a top down, we should have a STEM night. It wasn't a great demand. It was just like what if we did this? So like a couple of counselors and a couple of teachers were like, what if? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, your spouse is a STEM person and you know a STEM person. And all of a sudden we had aviators and engineers in the in the gym, and there's Domina Stamos, of course, will represent a little NASA talk there, and lots of kids showed up and enjoyed STEM night. I think this was a seed that was planted that I think will grow into a forest in the coming years. I think there's already energy around how to do it bigger, how to do it better next year. Super excited. We had our culturally and linguistically responsive teaching training yesterday. It was a follow-up. We had Dr. Shraki Hawley come out in August, who's phenomenal. He sent his colleague, Dr. G. Williams, out yesterday. We had the entire staff under one roof, which is always a big celebration for us when we can get both campuses and both certificated and classified together. And we had a phenomenal day yesterday, really kind of working on that. It's so interesting because it's so unique here in this zip code, right? We are amongst the most diverse schools in America. And so nowhere better than here do you talk about how do we make sure that we're culturally and linguistically responsive. When we talk about culture, we're not just talking about race and ethnicity, right? We're talking about race, ethnic, linguistic, socioeconomic, neurodiversity. The diversity of our student body is so phenomenal. And how do we as educators make sure that each person's cultural assets are seen as assets, not deficits, right? It's really a critical piece of work, and so we're really proud to have been able to do that yesterday. I think it was well received by our staff. 8th grade family info night. This is an interesting piece because it's kind of like prospective family tours, but just for insiders, right? And it was jam-packed. I mean, it was wall-to-wall 8th grade families. And it's funny because you know them all. And you walk in the room and you go, oh, I thought for sure you were shopping at a different school, but I'm glad you're here shopping this school. And, it's such a great community tonight. And I think our school and our program shows so well. And we heard this celebrated earlier today, this esports season kicking off. This is such a phenomenal piece right here because this program is double the size that it was last year. Last year we played League of Legends. Now we have League of Legends and Smash Bros. And we have, I think, 45 kids at the middle school playing now in a middle school league, which is about to become a huge bridge program for us, right? Kids who didn't think they were going to go to Westlake Charter High School are starting to go, oh, wait, the other high school down the street doesn't have a big esports program, but I'm playing esports at the middle school. I gotta tell you, I think it's a kind of a home run for us to have a feeder program built out like that. And just a little tip, Mr. Paredes, who has the Metal Benders Robotics competitive team at the high school, he has just asked, hey, can I come down to the middle school and build a feeder program? I'm like, hey, yes, you can, brother, right? Because the more kids you can plug in on 6th, 7th, 8th grade, the more kids who go walking right up to high school and build something phenomenal. So this is a great, pathfinder. This is a great exemplar of what's possible when you build that middle school to high school bridge. And this is just a ton of fun. First grade field lesson to the Sac State Planetarium. I love seeing our little first graders on a college campus at all. Just having them on the college campus is phenomenal. But then in the planetarium with all the, whoa, this is wild, right? It's so cool. Great field lesson there. And of course, our minute challenge. Pizza parties were today for all of those amazing explorers who, met their personal and class goals for the minute challenge on Imagine Math. So as we're all trying to figure out how we can support student growth in math, we've been rocking this minute challenge for quite some time. Let's dive into some strategic actions. I just have 2 that I want to shout out. A little strategic actions around the professional development. You heard me celebrate already a little bit. And then continued facilities collaboration around the East Commerce facility. We'll kind of talk about that. First on PED, just kind of let you know, in the 24-25 year, we finished up a 6-part series that was housed in Everest. You guys have heard me talk about that. We just wrapped up our second bookend to our culturally and linguistically responsive teaching practices. Good stuff there. We're going into the spring. We're using some Everest blueprinted practices, which are 2-part modules instead of 6-part modules, which really offers a lot of voice and choice, right? We've got 12 different modules that our staff can choose from going into the spring, which gives a little more flexibility rather than just the 3 in the fall. Did some surveying around the 6-part series to see, hey, what worked for you, what didn't work for you. We got a lot invested in Everest. Is it working? Resounding glows, impact on practices over here was like, hey, do you think that this series that you took, does it have a long-term impact on your teaching practices? things you learned, will you use them going forward? And yeah, very strong indication that people thought, yep, I learned something, I can use it in the class. People enjoy the cohorting, they love the excursions, getting out in each other's classrooms. And really there was this, the J curve on the safe space one was really impressive. It was like, hey, did you feel like you were in a room that was safe to like share your thoughts and opinions? And resoundingly people were like, hey, those rooms were facilitated in such a way that felt safe, which is good. The grows, grade level specificity. Hey, I'm a high school teacher and I was in UDL and one of the videos you showed was great, but it was about kindergarten and I was like, I don't see how that fits. Check. Resource development. Oh, I want more videos because I don't love the reading. I want more reading because I don't love the videos. That came up in the survey. We're like, yeah, totally. I 100% get that. And then this call for personalization. Hey, I've been teaching for, 20 years, and I'm a brand new teacher. How do you personalize this lesson for the two of us? And so, some great opportunities for us to grow our practices there. But I'm really impressed with where we are as a school on our professional development, professional learning journey. I think we're somewhere and we're going somewhere even cooler. It's kind of a draft of where we think we're going in the next several years. I think in the fall we'll have more Everest 6-part series. The ones that are in development right now are really targeted. Is like, hey, on the K-5 side, do you have the math curriculum unlocked? Do you understand it well enough? Have you been trained well enough in it? And then there's a literacy piece as well that includes like phonics and like literacy or globally, like reading. And then there's this really interesting piece being developed of 6-12 instructional practices, and in the subsequent year, doubling back down on a K5 instructional best practices. Those are interesting pieces that are coming together already. Really considering some some personalization through some embedded peer coaching pilots. Hey, I'm a 20-year veteran. I could take the UDL, love it. But I could probably also teach someone else the UDL. How do we maybe consider some peer coaching opportunities so that I get what I need and he or she gets what they need? That's something we're really scratching on right now, and it's kind of built into here, kind of in concept right now. I'm excited about it. I'd love to bring it back to let you know how that's going. And then working with our student support services team and our culturally and linguistically responsive team to discuss next steps. We think the student support services team is probably going to do a year-long drip, 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 same way that the CLR team's been doing this, the drip, drip, drip around culturally misunderstood behaviors. Every staff meeting, which is every other week, it's a little 5-minute video that we produced, and then we turn and talk and keep this culturally and linguistically responsive training alive. We've been doing it all year, and it's getting really good results. We think we'll probably do something similar with student support services next year and go, hey, let's talk full inclusion best practices throughout the whole year. Because if you aren't struggling with some fully inclusive practice, well, then you're probably not aware. Because we all are. It's the rubber band, man. So I think if we have 16 small drips next year around that topic, at least one of them you're going to be like, oh, that's the one I need for sure. So we're kind of excited about those potentials coming together for next year. Yeah, I just have to keep you abreast of professional development. It's written into our charter. And I say that out loud just so we're all aware of like why I bring this back all the time. When you write that charter and it says, what are you doing different than the school down the street? One of the things that you do different is you allow for 40 hours of professional development a year. When I was a teacher in the Natomas Unified School District, they said you're gonna have an 8-hour day in October, you have an 8-hour day in March. And that's your professional development. Here at Westlake, when I got here and realized professional development doesn't happen here and here, it's every other week, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. Well, that's why our staff is so phenomenal. They're constantly getting to pour into one another. And so that's why I bring this back, is it's really a part of who we think we are as a charter. Any questions about PD? Super cool. High school facilities collaboration. I just kind of bring this up because, at 4400 East Commerce, our lease is in negotiation with Natomas Unified School District and Buzz Oates Ownership Group. Buzz Oates Ownership Group owns the 100,000 square foot property that we're in. We obviously occupy 39,000 square feet of that 100,000 square foot building. Ownership has asked for some feedback regarding parking because per our lease, like these are our parking spots right here. And this is the Oasis back here. But then these parking spots all belong to the other two businesses that occupy the building. And we cause a lot of traffic because we're a school. So like, hey, could you do something about that? Real talk, I was in a lease renewal discussion when the representative for the ownership said, yeah, we're considering the renewal of this lease, and we're like, oh, full stop. Are you saying we might not renew this lease? And they said, well, anything's possible. We're like, oh, we're going to have to say, really, because we've just put $3 million worth of portables back there. We have 500 families who all, are really vested in this building because we're here. And so I just report to you that negotiation was in the presence of the Natomas Unified School District negotiator, and her face was like, it was the first time she had heard that it was possible that it was not up for renewal. We then immediately started moving into like, okay, what's the problem here? And the problem is this. The problem is that like the people next door have all these parking spots out here that they are frustrated about us parking in their spot. So I said, hey, you're dealing with a school that does more than anybody around the topic of parking. We'll even stand out in the rain if you perpendicular to park. I said, how about this? We'll go out in front of the store next door and we'll paint all of their parking spots that says this parking spot belongs to this business out here. And then we will install a video camera up here on top of our building, and we will point the video camera down to that parking spot. And if you see anyone parking in one of your spots, you can just text message anybody on this list right here and say there's a red car out there. We'll rewind the video and go, that's Hope Golly. Hope, go move, right? And they said, oh, well, that would be lovely. I said, well, we're here to help. I immediately then left that meeting, walked down to said neighbor. Hi, I'm John Hike. I'm the neighbor. Tell me how hard it is to live next door to us. I got it. We got 500 kids, and they're kids. And they expressed some frustration and said, well, I'm on the job. My team hears you loud and clear, and so we've already been down there a couple of times and trying to make nice. And I'm producing a kind of a parking proposal that I'm sharing with them and the Buzzos team. And I suspect that within a short month or so, we'll have this thing buttoned up. But it was like a bit of a call to action when they're like, well, as long as we get it buttoned up by September, that's when lease is up. I'm like, September's a little late for us. In fact, September of 2 years ago would have been late for us, buddy. We need a little more notice. So, I mean, I'm sure, look, I don't tell you that to be an alarmist, but I'm also like not going to leave that negotiation and not tell you. That's what I heard. So we are certainly working on that, and we've certainly reached out to some of our partners in the neighborhood who are influential in the neighborhood, let them know that we're involved in this negotiation, and they've been very supportive. So, city council and all those folk are super invested in us continuing to do the good work we're doing. And so we just made sure that everybody in the region knows that we are going to go above and beyond, install video cameras, paint stalls, all the things. But we've got more to deal with. Our kids park out here, and if this parking goes away because this road gets ripped up for the new construction, then those 35 stalls got to go somewhere. And so we're, actively working on that right now. Any questions about the lease? Wish I would have bought a building 30 years ago. I'll tell you what, this guy's doing all right. Let's talk lottery updates, because here there was a lottery closed. Lottery application closed on January 31st, and here we are. All this data, I just love it so much. I love going back to 2017. I mean, I got here in 2014, but I love going back to we almost have 1,000, and here we are at 1,432. That's where we are now. We're down compared to the last couple of years. This kind of takes us right back to 2022 when you compare, which is right around the first time we're taking freshman applications back then, or maybe back here. But, it's interesting growth trajectory. There's a little bit of a higher bubble there, but even still, to be well above 1,000 is fantastic. I've got a little more in-depth analysis than normal because, I don't know, I just started nerding out on the data and I wanted to show you. But I'll dive in here. The K-3 lottery, we have a reduced number of applications when you look from 22 down to 2005. I'm like, wow, that's significant. I mean, 380 to 270 is 110 applications, 169 to 112, 147. Okay. Now, these numbers down here, however, though, are still larger than they were, way back when we were talking about, these days back here. But since we got so high, the roll-off is significant. What's going on? So we have a reduced number of applications. I started doing the math and realized there's been a pretty sizable increase in the number of available seats in the district. Because NP3 in 2022 was less than 400 kids. Now they're almost 500 kids. So their elementary school has grown, and so there's more seats available at NP3 and Atoma's charter. But Heredia Arriaga didn't exist until a couple years ago. I was like, okay, well, I'm starting to do a little back of the napkin math. I'm like, okay, if you live across the street from Heredia Arriaga, check. There goes that applicant pool a little bit. And, if you got a sibling in NP3 or if you get in an NP3, okay, check. But then it dawned on me that there's been a potential impact of the expansion of TK. So back there in 2021, I think there was only 3 TKs, and now there's 10 TKs. All elementary schools in K-8 have TKs in the district. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that like some portion of Natomas starts TK, and that portion I would assume is less likely to apply here. Okay, nothing's good or bad compared to me, but you go like, okay, we do have 271 applications. You only need 110 applications to fill the grade level. You're still well beyond enrollment, but it's interesting to watch the shift in the data. The next shift is over here, because what you find is like we have an increased number of applications over here since we opened the high school. So you kind of go here and you go, increase. This 5th grade's not, but 6th grade is pretty hot dramatically, and 7th grade is pretty dramatically, and 8th grade is. So I mean, that's interesting. Since we opened the high school, we're starting to see more application down here. And I'm going to do a sibling piece in a little bit, but that might play in there. And then the last piece here is just, a leveling off of where we're at. I mean, I'm so proud of this. I mean, you go from 76 and you go 69, 59, 45, but even the fact that we're at 145, that is a lot of applications. I mean, everybody on this board who was here 5 years ago remember what we were all thinking. Gosh, wouldn't it be awesome if we had 85 kids? That would be the target. And the fact that this is 145 non-Westlake's 8th graders.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah, no, this is the 145 outside of what we would assume would be the 60 plus kids who come. So you have 60, so I mean, if you put just 60, right, then you're sitting at over 200 applicants. So, I think the high school is doing well. I do want to do the free and reduced lunch piece, I can stop for questions, thoughts, or concerns. Any just wonderings, noticings, questions? Any data? Yeah.
I think North Lake comes into play here too. We have a lot of families that have moved to North Lake.
Such a great
and
call.
Some of them were still going to NUSD schools, but then once North Lake opened this last August, a lot of people started going,
I just
let's
walk down the
go
street.
North Lake."
Yeah.
So I think that's just
I hadn't even
another-
thought about North Lake.
and
Such a great call.
Since I work with all the schools, enrollment has gone down at every school I work with.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, interesting. That's good data. Any other notices or wonders? No? Yeah, this is our 6th year of prioritizing siblings in the lottery to increase our free and reduced lunch pool, and it's working, right? We had 16 siblings pulled in the lottery who also would have qualified for free and reduced lunch. So the fact that we pulled them first and then pulled our 22 non-siblings, it gets you to no less than 35% free and reduced lunch as we stand right now. Now, we're still doing the analysis going forward, and as people accept and don't accept, you might end up with more in or out, but it seems from the initial projections, I mean, that shift that we made is still doing the work that we intended to do. I am tracking free and reduced price lunch applications. It's interesting. So back in 23, you had 59 applications, up to 66 applications. We only had 44 applicants claim to qualify for free and reduced price lunch. Just gonna track that, gonna watch that. Don't know what that is or why. I mean, same advertising pool, same push. Interesting. We'll see how it plays out. See how that data tracks. This might increase as we get the applications out there into the fall and people sign up. You might see that number go up, because I wonder if you don't have some people who already had the sibling preference who didn't need to acknowledge a free and reduced lunch preference to qualify for a lottery application, because you have 60. You'll see on the next slide. You have so many siblings in there, so it's a interesting place. So let's go. Any questions on that? this is a new slide. We haven't done this before, but we started playing with it because we have this high school. We're wondering what the high school impact is on the sibling preference, because the little part of us wonders, do we ever get so big with 1,500 kids where it impacts the kindergarten lottery such that you don't get all your siblings in? Just a question we have. Hasn't ever happened, hasn't come close to happening, but you are at this position now where you're like, okay, let's just do the quick math. If you got 60 siblings and you got 5 employees, you're at 65, and 22 free and reduced lunch, and right, you're at 87. You're like, okay, well, the general openings for just the regular old, hi, I live down the street, family walking in off the street, you know, that leaves a much smaller pool the more siblings you have. So then we kind of get doing this back of the napkin scratch on this. So this is the number of sibling preferences per grade level at the time of the lottery. We have not done this year for this because we have not validated all of the preferences, and we don't want to post it because what happens is you think you have all these people that qualify for sibling, and then it turns out they don't have a sibling, so they lose their qualification, they slip back. So we're just kind of scratched on this because this is kind of interesting. Look over here. Whoop, go that way, wrong way. Look over here at the totals. They are increasing, right? 128 siblings, now 175 siblings. I'm wondering if this year it's even more. So then you look down here, and because we thought, well, we're seeing less kinder applications, and we're like, oh, maybe opening the high school isn't going to give you a bunch more kinder siblings, although we do have more siblings. You do have more, but you're like, oh, I guess maybe it's more logical that a high school family who gets in has a middle school brother or sister, because that puts the spread, 4 or 5, years apart. So then you look at here and you go, oh yeah, that seems kind of spot on, from 4 to 9, from 7 to 16, from 6 to 17, since you open up the high school. That might have a play there. That's kind of interesting. The reason it matters is down here, right? This is the number of siblings as of today, yesterday, as of this week, who are still on the wait list, right? So we've gotten through all of our kinder siblings, but third grade still has 10 siblings on the wait list, right? Still 7 in 7th grade. And employees, same thing. We just got an employee in 6th grade today, which is great. Her son had been on the wait list all year. I mean, February, right? Right. Right. And she's a phenomenal employee. We love having her here. And she's so excited. Her son started today, first day today, but it was a 1 and now it's a 0 as of this week. So it's kind of interesting. You got 9 employees who work here who still have their child on the wait list, and 25 siblings still on the wait list.
When we say 3rd grade, the siblings in 3rd grade or the current enrolled students?
Good question. These are the 10 kids on the 3rd grade wait list. Okay. Yeah. And to me, it makes a lot of sense that we're heavier down here because what I see happening is the second child gets into kinder. So I got 2 kids, right? They're 2 or 3 years apart. First one doesn't get in again, doesn't get in. The second one gets into kinder. Now I got the sibling preference for the older one. You're like, ugh, right? But then it's really hard to get in because, I think you lose on average, and I'll just make up a number, but you probably lose 3 to 5 kids per grade level, on average out per year. But it's hard to get down to, you got 10 there, and I bet everybody got 3 in, Anyway, I don't know that I just thought it was interesting. Melissa and I were scratching on it. I was like, oh, so that's the board, because I'm nerding out on this data. I think it's worth tracking what is happening to our population as we grow, and we are now 12th grade. Like we're baked. We're fully baked. We're 12 or 13 grade levels. What's going to happen internally with all of these? Well, we know that you're going to keep bringing in 9th graders because you'll never have enough 8th graders to fill 9th grade. And that entry point will have a backwards effect, theoretically, on siblings.
What has the pattern been over the last couple of years that we've had the high school open with middle school?
With the 5 to 6? Oh my gosh. So when I got, I mean, I tell this story all the time, but when I got here to Westlake Charter School in 2014, my very first hall call, greetings, Explorer families. Be like, why is this guy yelling? Yabba dabba doo was talking about the thing. And hey, if you know any 6th grade families, we've got openings at our middle school, and it's great. Come on out. Like, we're looking for people. And we were only 3 wide back then, only 3 classes wide. Now we've grown out to 4 classes wide. And since that time, we've been very successful in filling them. But we've always seen, at the time, we always saw heavy matriculation from 5th to 6th grade because that was like your jumping point. Because in Natomas, if you wanted to go to the high school of your choice, Westlake didn't have a high school, blah, blah, blah. When we moved to this campus in 2017, and I presented this data here before, and I could bring it back if you like, we just saw that number just peel off, but still, it never bottomed all the way out. But it was very consistent. You'd lose about a class. 28 kids would leave our 5th grade and go to one of the 6th grades and matriculated to one of the charter high schools. Now we're down to 6. 5, 1 year, 3. All right, it's just we now have a high school, and still people make the decision in 8th grade where to peel off to, but there's not this great exodus from 5th to 6th grade. In part, I think our middle school is super successful. We've proven our K-8 really works, and I think also having the high school is at least for about half of our folks, and I think half of our 8th graders will go to our high school. I'd like to see that number continue to trend up, Yeah, great question. Any other questions on this or thoughts? Yeah. I think this is super nerdy. I'm excited about this. It was supposed to be 1 slide. It was like 40, but it was just like, Jen's like, just do the 1 slide, John. I'm like, I'm just gonna do the 1, or maybe a couple more. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. But if it goes too long, it's going to. So the great state of California has come up with a new growth metric on the California State dashboard, which they've been talking about doing for years. And we know that when we talk about test scores, that tests are green, yellow, orange, red, or blue is indicated by the cross section of achievement versus growth. And where do you land? You guys are all with me on that? Yeah, so I'm like, oh, cool, so you're talking about the growth. Well, no, we got a whole different thing. So it has nothing to do with that. It's a whole new thing, and I'll explain it shortly. It has just been released January 31st. I wanted to bring it out at the January board meeting because I actually had a peek of it, but it wasn't public yet until January 31st, but it is now live on the dashboard. Actually, I should open the internet and show you where it is, because if I don't show you, you'll never find it. It is hidden behind 3 Easter eggs on the California dashboard. It's the funniest thing. Challenge accepted. Yeah, go now. It takes 3 years of data to show growth. And so we have 3 years of data now. And it only shows growth for students 4th through 8th. Why doesn't it show growth for 3rd graders? Yeah, because they don't take a 2nd grade test. There's no growth for a 3rd grader. That's your entry point. Why don't they show growth for the 11th grader? Because they don't take the test in 10th or 9th. So they're talking about consecutive growth. Well, then how do you have growth for a 4th grader if it takes 3 years? Well, we just do 1 year for them. Okay, good, clear as mud. Got it. That's great. Love that. So I get it though. So you don't have growth for 3rd and 11th. This is a 4th through 8th metric. It's only for math and English. Why don't we do it for science? Because science tests in 5th, 8th, and 11th. And again, since they're gap years, you can't show the growth because it's an individual student growth metric that we're about to look at. Unless Johnny was here 3 years in a row, you can't show Johnny growth. And if Johnny tests in 5th and again in 8th, they don't want to do it that way yet. Okay, I'm with you. Let's play. So what in the world is this growth model? Their whole idea is they want to show growth in math and English language arts juxtaposed to achievement. What they recognize is we're always talking about achievement, but if you're always talking about achievement, there's always going to be student groups that achieve below other student groups. And we've all been trying to close the achievement gap for students with disabilities and for a century. And we're like, well, is there another way to look at this output, this educational output that isn't achievement oriented? Let's look at growth. Cool. How you guys gonna do that? Glad you asked. Let's go. So how does the growth model calculate growth scores? The first thing we have to do is determine a student's typical test score. This is fascinating and a ton of work. I'm so glad I don't work in this department, as this sounds like a lot of spreadsheeting, but here it goes. Let's start with all students in the state of California who scored a 3250 in 2022. This is hypothetical for educational purposes only. I made these numbers up. But let's assume in 2022 we had a spreadsheet for all the kids who scored a 3250 scale score on CAS. Right, great. Then we go to the next year and go, how'd they do? On average, they grew 100 points. Okay, let's do it again. Oh, look, another 100 points. Now we have a typical growth of 100. We've averaged it out across all these kids. Then we do it for every kid who scored 3251, 3252, 3253. Great. Now we have typical growth scores for, it makes your head hurt, it makes me like giddy. We have typical growth scores. We're gonna say the typical growth score is 100 for this particular category of student. Now we're gonna look at an individual student. We're gonna name him Bobby. This individual student who happened to score 3250 in 2022, and we're gonna look at the difference between that student's typical test score, their typical test score, and their actual score, right? That's what you would do. So this kid scored a 3250. In the 2 subsequent years, they scored a 3360, which is 10 points above 100. And again, the following year, they did another 110 or 10 points above. So this actual growth score was 110 or a plus 10. Are you kind of with me? Right. So now what are we going to do? Not at all. Great. Thank you for being honest. Yep. On average, the kids in the state of California in this kid's group go up by 100. This kid went up by 110. So he's outperforming the average.
So is his score 10 or 110?
Yeah, he scored 110 above average, or 100. I'm sorry, he grew by 110, which was 10 points above the average.
The average growth.
Yeah, the average growth, the typical growth score was 100. Since his actual growth was 110, he's 10 points above the average.
Okay.
And that matters because here we're going to say now, scores are average for students at the school or district level. So let's say a school has 500 kids that took the test. You have 500 kids. We're going to take the average growth scores to determine the plus or minus average for the school. Out of those 500 kids, if 250 of them scored 10 points above and 250 of them scored 10 points below, what would we be? We'd be zero. We would be average. We would be dead on average, right? So the whole game is how many of your kids are above average, below average, but the average is based on this crazy metric. Like they go and do this crazy, like what is a typical growth score for each year? And for this year, yep. Then, this is where it gets even wilder. Once they've done that, they do it for each student group. And then they compare all they compare all schools, and then they compare all student groups. So, how is your school doing against the statewide typical growth metric? Are you above or below the statewide typical growth metric? Then they go, hey, how are your students with disabilities doing when compared to the typical growth metric for other students with disabilities? So, let's find out. Here,
I love that it's all different colors.
Yes.
And metrics, just so you're prepared.
completely different
Don't
looking.
expect anything you've seen before.
Yes, it's not the little dials. It's not 5 colors. It's totally different.
It's kind of like a game control.
Well, they're all going to see it right now. Don't tell them what they're going to see.
This is hearing us.
I know, yeah. So this is the growth metric for English language arts. Here it is right here. Westlake Charter School is 11 points above average for all students. I'll just slow down and kind of like, we are 11 points above average. This would be typical growth. This line right here represents 0. That's typical growth for the state of California for all 4th through 8th graders. We are 11 points above typical growth for our students. So each school is determined to either be below typical or above in the growth metric. We are, in English language arts, considered to be above. You see how that's highlighted right there?
Do you think it would be above if it was just one?
It's a great question, because no, I found that out on the next slide. Yes, so, but what I can't find is the cut scores.
Yeah.
And I'll point something out in a minute, it just makes me a little uncomfortable, because it thinks that they're grading on a curve
It
somewhere.
does make me feel good though that it only goes up to 30 instead of it being like, you did 11 and it goes up to 500.
It's great.
That's
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I love that. I had gone there, but yeah, because it goes in increments of 5, which could be by actual design, or it could be like the graphic designer that laid out this. I don't know. But in these increments of 5, I thought, oh, well, 5 must be the target, and there must be a standard deviation of 5, and that's how you get the above and below. Totally not true. So it's a big guessing game, because the answers are not where you would think they would be, like on the website. And so now we have emails going out to people who are like, just don't, everyone's asking, stop asking. But it's fascinating. What's even more interesting, I think, is the student groupings. So we, in English language arts, have no students below in English language arts. Now, we know that on the achievement metric, we do have students who score low in achievement. What does that mean? Well, like, English learners and students with disabilities demonstrate typical growth. What does that mean? Our English learners and long-term English learners and students with disabilities are showing typical growth when compared to other English learners and students with disabilities across the state. Look at down here. You're socioeconomically disadvantaged, who are some of your lowest achieving students, are some of your highest performing students on a growth metric, because we are working hard to serve those students, and they are growing. I want to give you like a thought experiment here. What if during the pandemic you were a kindergartner or a first grader, and your education was severely impacted because we were all like working as hard as we could to do what we had to do, and what if you fell behind by a year? And what if, through the good, like the hard work of our teachers, you grew by a full year every year after that? Where would you be today? You'd be a year behind. You'd be a whole year behind. Why? Well, because you started off a year behind, and what if you came from a family who's historically has less access to educational resources, didn't go to preschool, or all the things that we know that help with achievement, and you grew by 1 year every year? Your achievement would still be behind. But you wouldn't have a metric to say, how did we do serving those children? And now we do. Now we're like, hey, that kid made a whole year of growth. They're still a year behind. What happens if a kid is a year behind? Or let's say they're on grade average, but they only grow 0.85 of a year per year. Well, they're only 1.5 behind at the end of 1 year, but at the end of 10 years, they're in a year and a half behind. And that's how it happens, right? I mean, that's how a kid gets to a 10th grade and they're in the 8th grade mathematics, because you're like, well, you didn't unlearn it in 1 year. It was just a compounding effect of like being a little behind every year, and it compounds. So that's why this metric matters. What is it? That's why it matters. What does it mean? We don't really know, because I don't know how you would target it. We don't have the metrics to tell you even what this means. I'll drill down if you want me to and show you some things. You'll go, well, I don't get it. Ms. Rice?
So is this saying that,
Microphone. Sorry.
so is this saying then, this metric is saying that for these students over here, we are helping them to grow more than a year?
I wanted to say that. And I think what it is saying is they are growing more than African Americans are growing typically, because it's based on this typical metric across the state, and more than Asians typically. But these are two separate metrics. And whereas one might be a full year of growth, one of them could be a 0.85, but the typical for the state is 0.75. So yeah, so I wanted to be like, yeah, that's more than a year of growth. But I'm not, it's so brand new. I mean, this thing came out 2 weeks ago, and I'm just dying to know more about it. The math achievement that we'll look at, and we know math achievement is low. Our growth is actually 3 points above typical. So you're like, oh, you're above typical? You must be above. Well, no, you're not above. You're typical. So there's your standard deviation. You're like, yes, right? But some interesting pieces of data in here. We're in the typical growth range, but let's look at the students here. So we have this socioeconomically disadvantaged students are 5 points below typical growth. This is 5 points, and they are categorized as below. There's also this group right here is also 5 points below, but they're categorized as typical. And if they're categorized as typical or below, 5 points below, they're 5 points, so they're only typical. So I don't know if they're on a different curve. I'll show you. I can open up the website and show it to you. But look who is 9 points above typical. Our students with disabilities. That's wild. I mean, that's a really bending the data. That's saying like you are outperforming. That group is way outperforming on that side of the trend. It's a new metric. This is the slide I was supposed to do. Here it is. Good luck sleeping. I will. Let's just have a little fun. I mean, I know. Hope you stop me if you.
No, but can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So could part of it be that typically for that group, they all like the typical was -5? Does that make sense? So while it's underperforming or below, I'm trying all new terminology, below typical, like, so if socioeconomically disadvantaged on average made the 0 typically, then the -5 would be below. But if, for example, Hispanic was -5 typically and we were -5, wouldn't we also be typical?
Love that. Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, and it's.
But what you're
then-
saying is for socioeconomic disadvantage, this group must have had a typical.
Or a 5 less than what has been deemed the typical score for that subgroup.
Yeah, it's so tricky because I want it to mean. I want typical to mean typical as the
So it would be
benchmark for
0
each one.
maybe, like to be some, or between,
Yeah, because it would be, because that's what in this definition that's what
it should be
typical
0
means.
or with the standard
Like-
deviation, right? I can see
Yeah, I mean,
-5 to 5.
but this line should indicate the 50th percentile of typical. Like that's the true north, and then your standard deviation goes off of there. And I want that to mean the same thing for all the groups, and somehow I'm not understanding it. I will come back when I understand it. I will understand it at some point, because I'll ask somebody, and we'll check it out. I will show you where it is at.
In theory, though, typical growth could be a negative number.
100%. I guaranteed it's a.
I guarantee. I like to pretend it's not guaranteed.
Oh, but we've all looked at statewide scores. I mean.
Yeah, this was fun. He's going to show you all the fun experiments.
Yeah,
I did.
where
2
would
minutes.
you find this data? Of course, if you're looking for the brand new growth metric, you'd go to this big growth header,
No, it's not there.
and you'd go to the science scores. That's where I'd go, and then I'd click on more information down here, which seems to have nothing to do with it. Oh, here it is. That is the most ludicrous. I don't understand why are we in the science score section, which is all grayed out, and this little arrow down here that nobody clicks on to find a new metric that's brand new.
I
Yeah.
found it through
You found it?
academic performance.
You-
Because then it popped over to the sidebar. So the secret to this is you have to get to, it doesn't matter.
You gotta
which
get to the
screen you
sidebar.
there, as long as the sidebar pops up, because then you can find it under informational purposes.
So just real quick, let's explore by groups. These are all of our groups down here, and you saw this on the slide. But if you wanted to look at the numeric values of the 7 groups above,
Oh, yeah, there.
African Americans are 13 points above typical growth, 11 points, 14, right? And then we go to typical, it's in English language arts, 5 points above. So anyway, you go down this rabbit hole and play on this dashboard. It's not as easy to find as you think, but if you get to the sidebar, you're right, it's right down here under informational purposes. Amy Rice?
I remember feeling very discouraged the last time that you came to the board and presented about the achievement gap
So sorry
data.
about that.
No, I just felt like, man, I feel like we're doing all the things and trying to implement all the things, and yet we are still having the same problems that everyone else is having in terms of actually getting student growth in these areas. So I would be interested to see that data now, because when it was laid out with like other schools in our area and how we compared with them, we really weren't all that different in terms of our achievement gap data.
What's interesting, and I almost did it. You go look at the dashboard yourself. But when you compare our growth data to some of our alpha, beta, gamma comparable schools, we're outperforming them. So what's interesting is our achievement is what it is, but then when you unpack it by growth, you recognize the impact of subgroup. And you go, well, if you have a larger subgroup of higher performers, great, but how are you doing with other performers? And you go, oh, wow, we're really doing well on our growth metric. And, for what it's worth, I could put together a comparable table, and maybe by next year when we come back around on it, we will play with some of the comparisons, and as we start to articulate our charter, it's worth pointing out. But it actually is really validating. I'll probably bring it to staff meeting and just be like, hey, everybody, like here's a cool different way of looking at the data. Good job. Yeah.
I just think looking at the data this way is very affirming.
Yeah. It's I want a little numeric value on there though that says 1 year of growth 0.85, 1.25. I'm dying to see that, I think that's such a valuable way to look at when we know this population of kids all got caught up in a distance learning scenario that had to have some affect. Yeah. Okay, well, that was just a quick one slide.
Well, and I appreciate this too, Amy, just to add. So when we opened the high school and our data changed, like we knew, like on the tradition, I don't know what the traditional dashboard, we knew.
That's a good point.
We would see changes, right? Like that was a naturally occurring condition, and we had to take a risk because a lot of times, your community judges you off those numbers. I really wish this had been around longer because it does show the work that you all are doing as educators, and it does show, I think, that our commitment to our mission is paying dividends. And it's always been hard I've been on impact the whole time, right? It's always been really hard for us to find a way to know, we know we make an impact, but it's always been sort of hard to encapsulate. So while this isn't a perfect model, I do want to express appreciation for it, because it is, when we go into charter renewal, it will be a tool to show that we are making a difference and that each piece of growth matters.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's a perfect call. It really is. It's great. I mean, it's mission aligned for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Last part of my report out is Steve's report out on the governor's budget. You want me to rock these slides?
Yeah, great.
All right.
Well, you're doing the presentation?
I am. Everything looks great. There's so much money. Spare no expense. That's the. I don't mind driving. Take it away, man.
So we'll talk about the governor's January budget proposal. Proposal is italicized because it is just a proposal at this point. Everything between now and budget adoption, a lot of things will happen between now and then. A lot of things have happened since it actually came out. It came out a month ago. And since that time, we've had a new federal administration come in. You've had devastating fires in Southern California. A lot has been happening in the state. So again, it's just a quick proposal. So it started off really talking about just some of the volatility that can happen in the state budget, primarily around some of the revenues that they come in, namely around personal income tax and capital gains. Just a flashback real quickly. Just want to look at hey, what has happened over the past 3 years. So 3 years ago, in May of 22, California had this surplus budget of almost $100 million. When you think, $100 billion.
Yeah.
Billion's like budget dust, yeah. So, $100 billion. And when you think about the budget for California in itself is a little more than $300 billion. When you get a $100 billion surplus, you're like, wow, that's quite a bit of money. Jump ahead, 18 months, and you've got, no, it's not $100 billion in the surplus, you're actually a $60 billion deficit, and they had to, go through a couple different mystery fixes to correct that. And of course, now the governor's coming out this past months and said, oh, we're now back in the positive by about $17 billion or so. So just goes to show you how quickly things can change in California. And of course, being a public entity, we are funded by public funds, namely from the state, so we are really at the whim of how things go. But it's been an interesting couple years on the state side.
An interesting month.
Interesting month.
Cola.
So we're gonna talk about something. Anyone can guess what we're gonna talk about?
Cola!
Cola! Right, so we're gonna talk cola, not this kind of cola. We're gonna talk about another kind of cola. We're gonna talk about the cost of living adjustment type of cola. So the governor has proposed a 2.43% cola, which is great. It is down though from where we were back in May of 24. It was up 2.9% projected. And when we talk about percentages, you kind of get abstract at what is a percentage here and there, but a 0.5% is about $100,000 or so. So, you know, every little bit means something. And as the budget can swing, so can COLA. So back in 22-23, there was a lot of one-time state federal monies coming in, so our COLA was about 6.5%. In 23-24, our COLA was a little more than 8%. When we were in July of 23, the projected COLA for 24-25 was about 3.94%, about 4%. A couple months later, in January of 24, when we were looking ahead to the 24-25 school year, that COLA dropped quite a bit, barely under 1%. There were actually whispers that might be 0, right? Then when 24-25 actually came into play, we were thankful to squeeze out 1% from COLA. So COLA can change throughout the year. And why is it more important now than ever that we pay attention to COLA? Well, as John mentioned earlier, we are fully grown out. So we are not growing class sizes, right? We are not growing enrollments. We are not growing kids anymore. And kids, as we know, bring attendance and dollars and those type of things. So we are really subject to a COLA-only environment. So as COLA goes, as goes the school's budget. So it's important to monitor COLA and kind of what's happening with that. Other things in the budget, the governor's proposing to eliminate some of the propping up he has done over the past couple years with the local control funding formula. For the past couple years, he's been using one-time funds to keep this ongoing cost going, and we never recommend using one-time funds for ongoing costs. Never really a good budgeting strategy. He's proposing to sunset that, thankfully. He's also continuing to invest in the ELO, the Early Learning Opportunity Program. That really funds after-school programs, so it funds everything from ASL, base, athletics, those type of things. An important thing to note about ELO is that when it first came out, the school was getting about a little more than $600,000. Now we get a little more than $400,000. So it's shrunk every year for the past couple years by about 13% a year. So just something to continue to monitor as well. As part of the governor's budget, he's got a lot of different block grants out there. So just kind of these slush funds that he's proposing. So $1.8 billion in its discretionary block grants. Some other couple $1 million here and there, literature grants and coaching grants and things like that. We'll see what actually happens when it resolves many months from now. If the $1.8 billion does come through in the end, it might mean about $500,000 for Westlake. What does discretionary mean? We'll find out. Sometimes there's some things you can and can't spend it on, but we'll see. In the past couple years, discretionary has been a pretty wide gate, so we'll see kind of what happens. But again, it's just a negotiation at this point between the governor and the legislature. That's about it at this point on the budget update. Finance will continue to get updates, and we'll be back next month with second interim, and then a couple months later with the budget for next year.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Back to you, Hope.
Before we take the consent agenda, would you mind doing a check for public comment?
Don't mind if I do. Seeing none.
Thank you. With that, we have items A through H on tonight's consent agenda. Are there any that the board would like to pull, or otherwise is there a motion to approve all, what is that, eight of the 8 items?
I'll move consent.
Thank you, Amber. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Amy.
Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Sapphire,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Nurali,
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Okay, we have one other item scheduled for action tonight, and that's accept and approve the comprehensive school safety plan.
Comprehensive School State Plan, which is here with us tonight, has been on file in the office for a month or so. We are pretty excited. I'm a nerd, so I'm kind of excited about the new edition of the ICP, which is the newly legislated portion of this. Trying to open it up. I don't know. I know everybody didn't get a chance to take a peek at it, but I know some of you did. And I'm interested by it. I'm interested by the idea that says you have to have an instructional continuity plan that says, hey, if your school closes, you need to be able to reopen. Now, when we went into distance learning back in 2020, we were noted on the front website of the California Department of Education as a model school. Like, hey, look what they're doing. We reopened in like 3 days. Other schools and districts took 3-4 weeks to reopen. And so I modeled our ICP somewhat after the incident command model that we utilized during distance learning, which was basically like our leadership team came together, opened up lines of communications with teaching staff through Google Meets and regular feedback forms, and the same thing for our parents. And then just iteratively, day by day, hour by hour almost, just iteratively like took in feedback and iteratively created practices and procedures. So I try to document that using a template that I got from the Thomas Unified School District, what they were riffing on. I like the work. I think it's certainly going to stand up. It certainly meets what would be considered the minimum requirements to have this thing accepted and approved by an authorizing school district. But I actually think it's a pretty good piece of work. So I think it'll stand up. If it passes tonight from this board, it will be forwarded to the Thomas Unified School District, and then acknowledgement of their receipt of it will be forwarded to the Sacramento County Office of Education. The second piece that's also inside here that's new for us is Addendum E, which is response to life-threatening medical emergencies and specifically sudden cardiac arrest. This is newly legislated and has to be part of the Comprehensive School Safety Plan as of July, I believe, 26th. So we're a little ahead of the curve on it, I think. But now that we have a high school, I think we all acknowledge that's where these unthinkable events happen. Sudden cardiac arrest happens. At high school sporting events, and so we're lucky to have an AED available on each of our 2 campuses, and that we train all of our staff biannually or every other year in CPR. And so we have lots of CPR trained and ready people here, and we note that in this policy and plan here. Are there any questions about the Comprehensive School Safety Plan? Very cool. If there are no questions or concerns, we'll be looking for a motion.
Yeah, and the only thing I would reiterate is that the school safety committee did meet
Oh.
and does recommend its adoption.
That's right. It was recommended this evening by the safety committee, and unanimously.
I will move the CSSP.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll second.
Hope,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Sackbeer,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Amber,
Yes.
Nurali,
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Perfect. That brings us to our discussion item, the LCAP mid-year update.
She needs to sign that too.
Let's sign this too.
I'll get it out.
Yep. Yes, sir. More slides. All right. Love me some slides. All right.
Yeah, unfortunately, this cannot be a consent item or a brief. It's got to be a presentation according to the ledge, so here's your presentation for the evening.
At 2 separate meetings too, right? No, not this one? Am I confusing it with something else?
No, the board will receive another formal LCAP update at the
That's
end of
it,
the year.
sorry.
At least the
Mid-year. This is the mid-year.
I'm sorry to confuse it.
All important mid-year update.
Okay.
Just jumping ahead, so in the LCAP is our local control accountability plan. The LCAP is part of the 2018 kind of funding overhaul. When we got the LCFF, we also got the LCAP in tandem. So the funding formula gave us local control, the LCAP gave us some local accountability, so they kind of go hand in hand. The LCAP and our strategic plan kind of mirror each other, which is very nice, because as we're measuring progress in our strategic plan and documenting activities we're doing on that, we can also say we're doing those same activities in conjunction for meeting our goals and objectives in our LCAP. So that kind of plays out really nice. And last year was a new element that the legislature blessed us with. They said, you now need to start doing a mid-year LCAP update. And they've since codified to say, well, since you did it last year, just continue going forward and doing that every year. So this will be a regular standing So we will look at things that we need to report out and talk about, our expenditures, implementation, and outcome data within our LCAP itself. So when we think about our LCAP, and you think about our strategic plan goals, we have 5 of those goals listed across the top there. So our goal area 1, we demonstrate what is possible. Across a little bit more than that, right? Goal area 2, school and community collaboration. Goal area 3, to create inspiring adults with academic readiness. Goal area 4, create inspiring adults with social emotional readiness. And goal area 5, lead as inspiring global citizens. And then each goal has a metric, that same metric as across each one. And it really says based upon quantitative and qualitative data, we will do, hope to do substantially similar, or similar than schools in our authorizing district area. So if we look at some quantitative data, like data that we could actually like tie back to, we've got certain dollar amounts that we can point back to, and this cut point for us was December 31st. So we can say, okay, based upon payroll data, expenditure data, those type of things, these are the dollar amounts we have expended. And then we can also tie back to things that we know we have done or are getting ready to do. For example, we've done these parent surveys, we have some NWEA data, we've done WebLink, we're graduating seniors, we've done like all these concrete things, right, that both align not only to our strategic plan, but also the LCAP as well. But then kind of the heartbeat, right, ones are like, okay, what are the ones that kind of like get to like the Westlake pieces of it? And these are all like the ones that kind of, you know, go all over the board. Like, gosh, we've got, you know, Dr. Hawley and his team coming in recently. We've got SEL pieces coming up, a touch of understanding. We've got our TOSAs building these awesome models out there. Just like all these things that kind of make Westlake who they are, who we are, happen. And again, we can align them in as part of our LCAP and as part of our strategic plan. Now, last year's slide talked about how the board, also within your board website, has access to some of the pieces where you can actually go in and see, because we'll report out in our administrative meetings successes we've had over the past couple weeks, and we tie those back to our strategic goals. So these things that are pulled up here on the slide are things that our team has commented on over, you know, the past number of weeks. So it's interesting to see not only to document those, but also actually to pull them in to show that, you know, we're making progress on these things. So that's the mid-year LCAP update this evening. But if you have any questions or anything else, I'll be happy to answer. But in a couple months, you actually receive the formal LCAP for next year.
No questions? That's good. Has everybody seen on the board website where it says strategic plan page? You click on the strategic plan page, and there's our strategic plan there, but there's this form here where we use as an administrative team, you know, a couple of times a month, and we say, hey, let's look at all the data. The goal area 1.1 has had 95 pieces of data, and if we look at all the data, you can go through and read, yeah, there you go. Just last month, somebody said in goal area 5.2, the DEI committee worked with kindergarten teachers to capture a video story right? Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, you could go through here and read all the ways that we think that we have manifest these strategic goals in a very qualitative way, you know. Just think that's an interesting read if you have a hard time sleeping at night. Just pull that right. Just kidding.
I might try.
It's all the coffee. Okay. If there's no questions on the LCAP?
No, and let's do a slightly different order. I'll take my purview. Let's do one more check for public comment.
Mm-hmm. Seeing none?
So before we go to closed session, because we'll adjourn before we do that, let's get to reflection.
Yeah.
And do one, what worked well or what would be better if, and who wants to go first? Come on. Oh, go Sean. Both times, wow.
Go
Yeah, and
you
then Sean
said.
will go second. We'll go that way this time.
I loved the dashboard growth piece.
Yeah.
I think especially for the educators in the room, like realizing that the things you're doing they matter and they're showing growth. I just think it was awesome.
That's good.
I really appreciate the time you took to unpack it instead of Sorry, Jen, just the first.
Just one slide.
So samesies, but I guess I will add on to it that I always appreciate how excited you get about data, because I kind of do too, and it's a little embarrassing when I can have a kindred spirit.
Here we
You
go.
know, like, I know that the questions, if I have a question, you probably already had that question, and so if you will already be trying to find it out, so that's great.
Yeah, love it. Steve, you want to play?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's the discussion of this new model, right? Because it's not only the data, but like, how did they come up with this model? Like, what's behind the scenes, behind the curtains, on all that stuff. So yeah, that was a really interesting piece.
It's good. What worked well? What worked better if?
Everything worked well. I would love to see Mr. Eichley come in and give a presentation on esports, if he's up to it. You and I have talked. I think that's something that separates us. We're kind of first on the block with it, but also all of our middle school sports are intramural except for esports, correct? And the way he does full inclusion on that team with how people qualify to be on the team, it is something very unique that I've never seen, and I'm a huge fan of how he did that. And if you guys don't know, I'd love for you to hear more about it, because he's doing a really cool thing there, and I'd love to just see a little more, if you'd like to.
Love it. Love it.
I always appreciate the governor's update in Steve's word. I think it gives us a good idea of what it really means for our school, financial impact, just a really good financial perspective. And then I know the LCAP midterm isn't exciting, but it's a good reminder of all the things to look at when we're bored, but also just a good reminder to kind of, tie in the fiscal numbers with the quantitative.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I appreciate seeing the celebrations at the beginning, because I'm in this world and I like to know what's going on in all the different places and spaces. It would have helped me, the 2 contracts that we had to look at were really long and really detailed, and if we had a summary or a brief about those, that would have helped me focus my.
Yeah. Sally and I talked about this today. I said, hey, bring this up at the meeting, because I then went and backtracked and threw a couple briefs in this evening before maybe somebody read them. But yeah, good shout out. Good governance work prepares the board to not have to read 48 pages if you really only had to read one number, which is we increased this by X thousands of dollars. Yeah, that's a great call out.
Well, especially if we're using a template or something that we've always used,
Yeah,
right?
right.
My question, is this typical, or
Yeah.
this is a lot?
Do we always have to read 48 pages? No, it's the same 48 pages as last time. We're just changing this number.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah, it's great. Good reminder. Thanks, Sally.
What worked, I too love the data, and I always love the dashboard, but for me personally, I appreciated the lottery information. Because our charter calls out our commitment to free and reduced lunch and tracking our numbers and making those lottery changes when they're necessary to sort of meet our charter obligations. The depth and how it works and the different interplay this year, I found really enlightening, and I appreciated it.
Yeah. It works for me to have teachers on the board. I appreciate all of our board members. Thank you all for being here and being engaged. But I feel comfort in sitting in a room where I go, my colleagues on the board here are part of what makes the data the data. And so I don't know, there's something about doing the data tonight. I've never done this dashboard presentation. Nobody has. It's brand new. And to have teachers in the room on the board reminds me how special it is to have teachers in the room and on the board, because no other board that I know of has that. So for me, that works well for me, because I can tell if what I'm saying is real by looking around and being like, is this real? Is this what we live? That works for me.
I remember fighting to keep that.
Yeah, right, where the lawyers are like, don't have teachers on your board. You're like, yeah, well, don't always listen to lawyers. Anything you want to play?
Yeah, I think Steve's budget report, I've said this before, but it always brings me a sense of comfort, because I hate budgets. I hate all of that. I don't understand. It's but to just know that I can just blindly trust him with a really huge budget and a huge
$20 million.
organization, and he just tells us what it is, and he tells me when I can't spend things.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Amy Rice?
Well, I appreciate being here, knowing that technically it is a privilege privilege to serve on a school board. I loved all of the things that were brought up tonight. Yes, agreed. But the thing that really struck me tonight was working with our community partners to be like, hey, the fact that you walked next door, you know, and you're like, hey, tell me what it's like to live next door to us or work next door to us, and like, we're gonna try to solve the problem. We're
Yeah.
gonna paint the spaces. We'll put in a camera so that we can help solve this problem. I just think that it goes to, like, when we say when school and community collaborate, we're not just talking about our own school members and our own school community. We're talking about the community at large. And so the fact that you called that out tonight just made my heart, like, skip a beat a little bit in terms of, like, our, you know, mission and what we're doing here. Because we walk the walk. We don't just talk the talk. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, right on.
And
Right
just to real quickly add on to that, Dr. Ike, I believe the district even thanked you for your positive outlook and the way you were able to be so very you and to do exactly that, to live by the motto and show it.
Well, Lelania, who's the negotiator for the district, I've met her, but I don't know her well. And so I'm on a Google Meet with Lelania and MG, Melissa Grunholz, and these negotiators. And when they kind of flipped the script and I went, hey, here's what we're going to do. Everyone follow me. And allegedly, Lelania at that point was texting MG, being like, I've never been in a room with John Ike. This guy's amazing. And I was like, well, that's a nice text to receive. Thanks, MG. Yeah, because I think she was like, what? Did they just say that? And at which point we're like, well, we're not going to let that happen. So, yeah, it was fun. Yeah, thanks. That's
Because
right.
he walks the walk, he talks the talk,
Well,
and I don't know that we always hear that. So your reflection really made me think that now is a good time to shout that out.
At that point, I was highly motivated to
Just a little.
do whatever. I was like, wait, what? Yeah.
That phone call that day was fun.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Well,
Zephyr.
all my reflections are been taken, but I thought the conversation we had about the lottery and the numbers and how they're still at a high number but a little bit lower was really great. And to see all those siblings, the sibling stuff was awesome.
It was
The
interesting.
discussion about that was awesome. Why is third grade 10 but nothing even comes close to maybe they're the middle child or not in, the older one's not in. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, perfect. That's all the way around.
Amazing.
So we will now go into closed session for a conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and E1, because now we have to do both. But I don't anticipate any report out. So for people at home watching on YouTube, I will say good night now, and if anything changes, we'll pop back on and make an announcement, but really none expected.
Good night, Paul.
Good night, Paul.
Meeting adjourned?
Meeting adjourned.
Okay.